Hello, in this video we're going to talk about plant organ systems, and we're going to focus on those organ systems responsible for transport. Now, when we talk about transport, we generally categorize into two main areas, and the first one is water and minerals. So water and minerals. And the other one is dissolved sugars and other nutrients. So dissolved sugars and other nutrients, and when we talk about other nutrients, we're talking about things like amino acids, which are needed for making proteins. There are one or two others as well, but generally dissolved sugars and nutrients is the other area that we talk about. Now, water, as we might remember from a previous video, is brought into the plant by a process called osmosis, and the route that it follows goes through the root hair cells into the roots, then into the stem. Then from the stem we go into the leaves, and it doesn't just stay there in the leaves, it then moves out into the air. And when we have that little system, we call that the transpiration stream. The transpiration stream. And that's water going all the way from the soil back out to the air again. Now, the last two stages, when we go from leaves into the air, this is called transpiration. This is the evaporation of water from leaves, and we call that transpiration, and we're going to look at that in a bit more detail in the next video. In terms of our minerals, the way they get into the roots is by a process called active transport, and we've looked at that also in a previous video. So that's active transport, and the route they follow is the same as with the water. They go through the root hair cells, roots, stem and leaves, not out into the air though. Okay, now this is all taken care of by a particular type of transport tissue called xylem. So xylem is responsible for transporting water and minerals up the plant. So we can highlight that just to show that it's water and minerals, blue and grey. And then we've got the dissolved sugars and the nutrients, and they will follow a slightly different route. They will be made in the leaves, so sugars are made in the leaves, glucose first, and then they will go through the stem to other leaves, or to the roots, or to storage tissues, where the sugars will be used directly to release energy, or they might be stored away. And all of this is called translocation. So moving dissolved sugars and nutrients around the plant is called translocation, and this is taken care of by another type of tissue. So let's just highlight that so we know what we're talking about. So this is taken care of by a tissue called phloem tissue. There we go, that's the phloem highlighted. Now we're going to focus into a little bit more detail about how water is transported into and out of the plant. Okay, so we've got a diagram of a plant there, and we're focusing in on the idea of the water movement, or the idea of movement of water. And if we look at it very simply, we can just see that the water goes in through the roots, as we said, into the leaves, and not just one leaf, it's actually all the leaves of the plant. So there it goes, dividing up into all the different parts of the plant, and then, as we said, it evaporates away from the leaves into the air. Okay, so just that's all the wiggly lines there is showing water evaporating into the air, and we said that this was transpiration. Water evaporating from the leaves was transpiration. Now we know that the water gets in through the root hair cells, and it's important for you to know what the key adaptations are of root hair cells, and we've covered that in a previous video. I believe it's called cell specialization, so we won't go into the details here, but those root hair cells are adapted to take in water, and this is roughly the structure of the root, the stem and the leaf as the water moves up. Now there is the xylem tissue. You don't need to know and remember the exact position of the xylem, but you do need to be aware that it's xylem tissue that does the transportation of the water. If we focus in on that little part of the plant there, as we've done in our last video, you'll see all the various different tissues, and the water would travel through those tissues and be used in photosynthesis and so on, but a good proportion of it will evaporate out through the stomata. And if you were to look at one stoma, so here is a diagram of a stoma, that one's open and allowing water vapor to evaporate out from the opening. Okay, and just as a recap, those two cells on the side are called guard cells, and they can open or close the stomata to allow water to evaporate or to allow gases in or out. So they can open or close the stoma. I put that in singular there. Remember, many stoma is stomata. Okay, and this is the key part of transpiration, water evaporating through the stomata into the air. And we're going to look a little bit more detail of factors that affect transpiration in the next video, and how we might do experiments to measure that rate of transpiration. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.